Good evening. I've decided that for the next few days until Pesach, and maybe during Chol Mo Pesach as well, I'm going to switch from insights on the Haggadah that I was doing for the last few weeks and to share some thoughts on Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. Many people have the minhag, the custom, to read it Pesach night after the Seder, as well as that it is the prevalent Ashkenazi custom to read Shir HaShirim on the Shabbos of Chol Moed Pesach, which would be this coming Shabbos. So we won't get all that far, but I did want to share a few ideas. Primarily basing the ideas that I'm sharing with you on two svarim. Number one is Avas Shai, which was written by Harav HaGaon, Rav Shar Yashuv Kohen. He was the chief rabbi of Haifa for many, many years. His father was the famous Nazir, who was one of the three Talmidim Muvhakim, primary students of Rav Kook. And Rav Shar Yashuv himself was a tremendous, tremendous Talmid Chacham. And for many years in Haifa, he taught a class on Shir HaShirim. Apparently, he went through it actually more than once. And shortly before he passed away, the book didn't actually come out until immediately after he passed away, but it was published from tapes and notes of his classes on Shir HaShirim. Also, Rav Avram Sri Kluger, many of you are aware that I'm a big fan of his as well. In his Sefer B'ni Bechori Yisro, which is about Pesach, he has a section all about Shir HaShirim. So I've tried to gather some of the ideas that each of them have to say about Shir HaShirim. And as I said, we'll try to cover the first little bit over the next few nights. Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. So the Medrash points out that the word shir is singular, and that it immediately segues into shirim, which is plural. And the way the commentators understand the Medrash is that the idea is that Shir HaShirim is taking all the different songs of the world and creating a harmony between them into creating the one perfect song made up of all of the other songs in existence. That's why it's the Song of Songs. And that's why it's also the Song of Unity. Because as we're going to go on to understand, the whole idea behind Shir HaShirim is to understand our unity with Hashem. So we start off, in order to create that unity, by needing to harmonize everything else in existence. We find this concept, for example, that we are taught that there are Shivim Panim La Torah, that there are 70 different ways of understanding the Torah. But at the same time, Kulam Meroa Echad Nitnu. All of those 70 ways to understand the Torah were all given by one shepherd. And although you can look at it from 70 different ways, but at the end of the day, all of those 70 different ways of approaching Torah can all be taken together and be united. And that's true whether we're talking about halacha, and that's true whether or not we're talking about hashkafa, Jewish thought. Ultimately, the idea is to find a way to unite all of them. This is actually reminding me of kind of a funny little story that had happened to me a few years ago. I was in the middle of a conversation with a group of people, and someone posed a question, and one of the other people offered an answer. And after he was done, I offered an answer which was based in Kabbalistic thought. And I'm not sure what bothered this person about the fact that I gave an answer based on Kabbalistic thought. But his immediate rejoinder to me was, oh, you think you know Kabbalah? Explain to me the disagreement between the Ben Ish Chai and somebody else about some point in Kabbalah. And I remember the thought that entered my mind right then and there wasn't his attitude towards me, but it's when I think about Kabbalah, I don't see it as disagreement, as machlokas. I see Kabbalah as a unifying force. And when I look, even if there are, so to speak, different points of view and a disagreement, I always view it from the perspective as how are these things really an expression of unity and what is the commonality? If anybody has ever had the opportunity to study, for example, from the Sfarim of the Baal HaLeshem, one of the main things he is focused on throughout his works is all the places where people seem to assume that there are disagreements between the Gra and the Arizal. He seeks to unify them. Even the Baal HaLeshem himself, who famously argued with others about the nature of tzimtzum. But in recent generation, there are those who try to show that there wasn't really a true machlokes about tzimtzum either. My point is that when you get into the depths of Torah, if you really understand it, what you should be seeing is unity and not diversity and not distinction. And Chazal also tell us it's Shir HaShirim Asher LeShlomo, the song of songs to Shlomo. And the Medrash describes the word Shlomo as meaning Lemelech Shahashalom Shelo, for the king that peace is his. Because at the end of the day, that's the main thing that God cares about, is peace. And Hashem created the world in order that there should be peace, as the Medrash tells us the beginning of Sefer Bereshis. So underlying everything is unity that creates harmony between everything within creation. The Mishnah tells us that Kol Hashirim Kodesh, that all of the songs that we find in Tanakh are holy. The Shir HaShirim Kodesh Kodashim. And Shir HaShirim is the holy of holies. Why is it the holy of holies? Because throughout the entirety of Tanakh, every single word in the entire Tanakh can be understood on four basic levels. There's Pshat, the simple level, Remez, which is allegory, Drush, which is creating connections between different psukim, and finally Sod, that's the hidden Torah within the psukim. But Shir HaShirim has no pshat. Shir HaShirim has no simple explanation. Shir HaShirim is all in the depths. And that's why it's holy of holies, because the only place where Shir HaShirim rests is within the depths, deep inside our hearts and our souls. One of the phraseology that we find throughout Shir HaShirim is the term Ra'ayasi, which is usually translated as my beloved. And that is a description of the relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people as Ra'ayasi. Because one of the concepts that Shir HaShirim is trying to get across to us is that in a certain respect, from the time of Har Sinai, when we got the Torah, and extending all the way through the building of the Beis HaMikdash, our relationship with Hashem was on a certain level like equals. Because Hashem gave us a tremendous amount of spiritual power. That's why, and again, this is not the time for me to elaborate on this. When it comes to understanding halacha, Hashem gave halacha over to mankind to understand that. That denotes a tremendous level of trust. Even more than that, Hashem gave us free will. If you don't have a tremendous level of trust and faith in somebody else, you're never going to give them free will because you don't trust what they're going to do with it. But this is a relationship of two equals with a very, very deep level of trust. And that's why what can come out from it is Hashem trusting us with his Torah, Hashem trusting us to give us free will. And we also find in Shir HaShirim that it's written in a dialogue with one questioning the other and the other one responding and then asking a question. It's showing the way that two people in a relationship on an equal footing, how they are meant to interact with one another. And I want to suggest that maybe that's why, getting back to what we started with, that it's the Shir HaShirim. It is a song of putting together many different songs. Because if you want to enter in a relationship with another person, in this case, we're talking about a relationship with God, but relationship with people is meant to be a metaphor for a relationship with God, as is clear in Shir HaShirim, then you have to come with your whole self. And you have to come with your entire self in a balanced way. As long as you're not putting your entire self into the relationship, or as long as there are parts of yourself that are out of sync with one another, you will not succeed in a relationship with another person. It has to be the entirety of you and in balance. It has to be a shir, which consists of many other shirim, a song, which consists of many other songs, all singing together in perfect harmony.